Hey friends, Thursday here, and today we're going to focus here on text structures, specifically the main idea text structure. Okay, so friends, we already know that readers of nonfiction understand the importance of sorting through all the information they encounter in a text. There are many different ways to sort through information. However, the easiest way is to follow the writer's lead and sort through the facts by following the text structure that they used writing their text. Now, today we're going to read an article about Jamestown, the first colony in our country. And before we get into that, let's just kind of quickly take a look at the different types of text structure. Now, I've already told you that today we're going to focus on that description, main idea, and details. So we're going to pull out the main idea and details that we see in today's article. Tomorrow, we're going to focus more on chronological, so putting things in sequence. We already know that authors may do a comparison structure where we're comparing and contrasting, finding similarities and differences. We know from our mentor text on air quality and climate control, there's lots of problems, and the world is trying to solve climate change. And because of our actions, here on Earth, we do have some effects on our environment. So we have talked about those causes and effects. Now, as I said today we're going to be following here our author's structure of main idea. Now, this article is filled with cool information about the colony and the colonists who settled the town and who lived there. It is important that we pick out the main idea and supporting details as we read. The information in this article is presented, yes, in two different text structures, description and problem solution, but our focus is going to be on the main idea, the description. We're going to focus on the description text structure, and we're going to use our graphic organizer to note the main idea and the supporting details that we find in the article as we read. The author's already chunked information for us by using subheadings text feature. Now follow along as I read that first section of the text, heading home. So one more time, you can see here that text structure. Okay, I said heading home. We're going to start with the dangerous land first before looking here at the next section on heading home. Now, after I read a dangerous land, I want you to think about, what did we just read? What can we be determined as the main idea or the big idea? Ask yourselves, who and what did I just read? All right, let's follow along. A dangerous land. On May 14, 1607, 3 ships full of colonists came to shore along the banks of the James River in what is now Virginia. The people on board had sailed from England to a new colony. They called it Jamestown. The colonists couldn't have chosen a worse place to settle. It was marshy and filled with mosquitoes. There was little drinkable water. Worse yet, the area was in a drought. They also faced other hardships. They had to protect themselves from 2 enemies. First, they were fearful that ships from Spain would attack them. England and Spain were fighting each other at that time. Second, they were afraid that a Native American group, the Powhatan, would attack them. And to protect themselves, the colonists built a fort. It was a triangle shaped. Inside the fort, the colonists thought they would be fairly safe. They were wrong. The new environment threatened the colonists even worse than the Native Americans did. Indeed, it nearly wiped them out. So who and what did I just read about? I know it has something to do about the dangers they faced, right? So already we know that Jamestown is dangerous. Now, what were the details that showed me how it was dangerous? Do you remember? All right, let's take a look here. It was marshy and filled with mosquitoes. They were fearful that ships from Spain would attack, and they were also afraid that the Native American group that was already living there would attack them. Now, please, friends, in your binder, I want you to jot these findings down. Okay, that's part of our classwork today. Now, I want you to listen closely as we go into heading home. All right, let's see what this next section is going to be mostly about. The drought caused many hardships. Water was scarce, crops wouldn't grow, animals couldn't find plants to eat. The colonists were often hungry and thirsty. Out of food, the colonists started to eat anything they could find. They wolfed down cats, dogs, horses, and rats. They even boiled starch from some of their clothes to make a thick soup. Still, they starved. Thirsty, the colonists drank water from the James River. That was bad. The river water was often muddy and salty, and it made the colonists very ill. Many died from drinking the water. Others died from starvation. They called the period the starving time. Nearly 2 years after the colonists founded Jamestown, they decided to head home. Worn out, they loaded a ship and got ready to leave. In the nick of time, supply ships arrived, and the colony was saved. Things now started to get better for the colonists. More colonists showed from England to Jamestown. One of them was a man named John Rolfe, and we'll get to talk about him in the next section in just a minute. Okay? So what was that section about heading home, question mark? How were they looking at heading home? What was it that was causing them issues? Oh, the major drought had happened, right? This major drought caused these problems. So what were the problems that they were facing now because of this drought in that section? Not enough food, people starved, the water made them sick. They referred to this time as the starving time. That's how we knew that they were in big trouble, okay? All right, now we're going to go into this next section called A Better Life, and we're going to learn a little bit more about John Ralph, okay, and try to figure out what this section is mostly about. John Ralph settled in Jamestown 3 years after the colony had been founded. Things were finally starting to look up. Soon the drought ended. Things continued to get better. In 1614, Ralph married Pocahontas. She was the youngest daughter of Chief Powhatan, the leader of the Powhatan. The marriage brought peace between the colonists and the Powhatan. Rollick also got a shipmaster to bring tobacco. Excuse me, Ralph. I'm reading a very small text. Ralph also got a shipmaster to bring tobacco seeds to Jamestown. And before long, the colonists were growing and selling tobacco. A plant grown to be sold is called a cash crop. More and more people moved to Jamestown. Many wanted to come, others were forced. Kidnappers brought people from Africa to Jamestown. They were forced to work. And after a few years, some of these Africans were freed, others remained slaves. Slaves worked in the tobacco fields. They built houses for their owners. They did much of the work to build the colony, yet they were never paid. For them, Jamestown, America did not offer a better life. Okay, so I know we're talking here a little bit about John Ralph, right? Okay, what would you say was the main idea? What was he known for? He arrived with supplies. Now that in that section, what were the details to support how he had arrived with supplies here? Remember the supply ships that saved the colonists just in time. Okay. We also know Ralph. What else was important about him? He married Pocahontas, which brought peace. Ralph brought tobacco, which became a cash crop for the colony. So because of all this, we have these details here that support his arrival and the supplies. All right, let's go ahead and just finish our article here, and you can kind of think about the main idea and details of these last few sections. A changing land. The colonists changed the land around Jamestown in many ways. For starters, they cut down forests and grew crops. The colonists also brought new animals and plants to America. Domestic cattle, chickens, goats, horses, and pigs all made the journey to Jamestown. None of these species lived in the Americas before the colonists brought them. Some of the smallest alien animals brought by the colonists made the biggest changes. Take worms and honeybees, for example. Before 1607, worms did not exist in some parts of America. Night crawlers and earthworms didn't crawl through the soil. These tiny worms made the changes, and the leaves that littered forest floors. Those leaves fertilized and protected the soil, so without the leaves, rainwater washed away nutrients. That made it harder for some native plants to grow. And while worms made it harder for some native plants to grow, honeybees made it easier for some alien plants to take root. Busy bees helped pollinate watermelon, apple trees, peach trees, and without bees, these plants would have never survived in America. So it's almost, even though I know the main idea is more about the changing land and how the colonists changed the land of the Americas, but it also kind of presents a little bit of a problem solution. So because they brought some of these animals, okay, they did sort of have this idea of some problems that were caused. So they caused the problems of bringing about, changes that some were positive and some were negative here. Okay. All right, now let's take a look here at the last part, true survivors. The Jamestown colonists weathered some tough times, but they survived. Jamestown was the first English colony to succeed in America. More colonists followed. The people in the colonies changed the land in many ways. So did the plants and animals they brought. Together, these colonies, plants, and animals helped make America what it is today. Okay, so like I said before, we've kind of wrapped up here today on looking at the main ideas in these first few sections and what were the details that we've learned. You've done a great job at identifying all the main ideas and supporting details. Remember, the author of this article also used the problem solution text structure. We'll revisit this text and use it to find problems the colonists faced and the solutions they came up to solve those problems. As readers of nonfiction, it is important that we understand how to identify the structure or structures the writer's using. Doing so is going to make it easier for us to sort and chunk important information to enhance our understanding of the big ideas. So friends, today what you're going to do is you're going to take a look here at the organizer that I've given with you, and my roomies with your table partner. You guys are going to take a look at a new text and try to pull out the main idea and details from the text today. My Zoomies, that will actually be given, the graphic organizer will be in your Google Classroom, and you will revisit your Scholastic News to again pull out what were the main ideas in the article and the details that supported it. All right, can't wait to see which your articles that you've chosen for today and what big ideas you were able to uncover. Until next time.